welcome to my channel. My name is Grace. Today I'm going to be going over all the books I've already read this year. There's only been 13, so it's not that many in the grand scheme of things, because I really wanted to do a June reading wrap up. I read about 4 books, which, is roughly like a third of what I've read this year. And I decided with that was kind of a small amount, and also like I haven't really talked about any of the other books I've read this year, so might as well just talk about them all, because I'll talk about in this video, I'm going to talk about what I've already read this year, and then my next video, which I'm about to film after this, I'm going to do the mid-year freakout tag, which will also include some like plans for the later half of the year. So I kind of track by Goodreads for the most part. I think my story graph is up to date. I'm not 100% sure about that. But I went through and like wrote down like a breakdown, because I really love when people give a breakdown of like their audiobooks, their mixed books, like all those type of things, like how they read them. So I did that. So I should start off by saying, last year I didn't read that much, and I also stopped tracking halfway through because it wasn't a great reading year for me. So this year my reading goal was 12 books. So like at least 1 book per month. And I've read 13 so far. The other thing I will say is when it comes to my Goodreads, I decided, because I am fully okay with DNFing books, okay? Like if I'm not feeling it, I will not read it. But I was like, well, those should count on my Goodreads. But usually it's like I've read at least like halfway through the book, and then I will count it towards my reading goal because I put in all that time, blah, blah, blah. If you don't agree with that, that's fine, but I decided that's what I want to do. There are a couple books that I like barely read, but still DNF'd. Those didn't count. But I'm still going to talk about, first I'll talk about like the DNFs. The 2 that have counted towards my like reading goal. The first one is Nature Girl by Carl Hiaasen. This was a book club pick, and I read most of it. I listened to the audiobook, and like when I was actively reading the audiobook or listening to it, it was okay. Like I was intrigued. I wanted to know what happened next. But when I wasn't listening to it, so when I wasn't driving or whatever, I had no interest to pick it back up. And by the time that we actually had book club and like hearing the ending, I was like, honestly, it's not even worth me finishing. But I'm pretty sure I got like roughly 60% into that book. And then I was like, I'm just not going to continue. Like, again, I didn't have any reason to pick it up outside of when I had it down. Like when I wasn't reading it, I didn't want to pick it back up, so I just did it. The next one that I counted towards my goal is Beauty's Beast by Leigh Savino and Stacia Belak. So this was actually a pick. I'm in this bookish Discord called like Bookish Reality, and I'm a part of like a spicy book swap. And I forgot, I think this was a themed one. It might not have been, but that was one of my book picks that I was given. And again, I got like halfway through and I just did not enjoy it. Honestly, it was the main male character gave me the ick. Like I didn't like him. So I DNF'd it. I couldn't continue with that. A book that did not count towards my goal, but I wanted to mention because I did DNF it this year, was The Pisces by Melissa Broder. This was another book club pick, okay? And this book was a pick by like one of my best friends. I hated it from the first line. It was so bad. I personally, again, my thoughts. I think I finished the first chapter. And then I literally like asked my friends, and one of my friends in the book club DNF'd it. I knew that. My other friend who picked it, actually she ended up loving the book, but I messaged her, I was like, do you think it's worth me continuing? Because I'm not feeling this. And she's like, probably not. If you're not liking it now, you probably won't like it. And then I don't have that many trigger warnings, but I also don't like animal death. And apparently that also plays into it. That was like a trigger. And I was like, nope, good thing I didn't read it because I don't like that. But I just like first line was not vibing with it. The next one was The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. I was just listening to the audiobook and I just didn't really like it. Oh, you know what? That actually reminds me. I had another one that's more of a temporary DNF because I had to return it from the library. I think it's like What to Do When You Feel Like You're Drowning. It's like a self-help book, but it's not really. But that was like a really powerful book. I would highly recommend it. I'll like pop it up here on the screen because I don't remember the title and I don't remember who it's by, and I'm only just now remembering that I read half of that book. I just never tracked it because again I had to return it to the library. Okay, so let's talk about the other books that I read this year. The first is by far, apparently, I've read most of my books by audiobooks, which make sense because I did go on a couple trips this year, both to Mississippi, which is about 8 hours away. And then I've driven out to my mom's house and she lives about 5 hours away. So I'll listen to audiobooks sometimes on my drives and stuff. I don't really like short, like if I'm driving to work, because I don't want to stop at the book that many times. But, and these are all like, in each category, it's listed by like what I read first. First one was My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This book was so good. Let me pull up what I rated these, because that would be another thing. That would be good to tell you, like, what I rated them. I think I gave it 4 stars, actually. Let me double check that. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. Oh, 4.5. But I rounded down to 4 in Goodreads. It was so good. It was like a rom-com. Honestly, I think the only reason that I didn't give it 5 stars is because there was some things that happened that like were supposed to be like a mysterious element where it's what is it called? Like something happens with I think his name is Frederick, if I'm remembering. I read this back in February, so I'm not full on the details. But there was something he did that like impacted like his family, and you know his family wasn't being supportive, blah blah blah, and like I just felt like that little aspect of it kind of was a letdown. But overall loved that. 4.5 stars. The next one I listened to was actually this month, was How to Bite Your Neighbor and Win a Wager by Deanne Bren. That was such a great book. 4 stars. Basically, like, I feel like the tagline is like gay paranormal mystery with romance. Not really a mystery. Not as much mystery as I thought. But it was just really good, and there's some like trigger warnings about like self-harm and talks of depression. But it was like, I mean, it was basically full on like a paranormal romance, but like kind of a mystery element, because one of the characters' mom has died because of this big like pharma company, and he wants to figure out what is going on, and to get on, like, become an insider to this company, he is supposed to like give them a vampire, which is how he ends up meeting and like he befriends the other character, and then he ends up, you know, falling in love with him. And also I'm gonna be very vague because I have forgotten most of these characters' names, and I think I remember the plot of almost all of these books, but the names don't remember any of them. And then I read Teach the Torches to Burn by Caleb Roehrig. That one was so good. So I found this book, and it turns out there was like a bunch of authors who decided to do like remixes of like classics. So this one is a Romeo and Juliet remix. Okay, and I also want to say, like, I would highly recommend all of them. I've only read 2 of them so far. I thought they were all like remixes to make them like LGBTQ plus. That's not the case. But it does, like, that is part of it, some of them, but they also just kind of more of like the minorities, or the one I really want to read, which is a Robin Hood retelling, well, remix, is Eastern culture, and like plays into elements of that, which I just find really interesting. But this one was the Romeo and Juliet one. Honestly, this one was really good. I gave it 4 stars. I was surprised by it. In the very beginning, I was kind of really annoyed by it, but then I ended up really loving it. Would highly recommend. It was great. The next one I read was Into the Bright Open by Sherry Demeline, I don't know. That one was a Secret Garden remix. That one was really good. I gave that one 4 stars. If I had to choose between the two, I don't know. I don't know which one I liked better. That's a really hard one to say. But that one I really loved. I feel like when I was like looking at the reviews and stuff, I feel like that one's rated lower because a lot of people were like, well, I didn't like The Secret Garden, so I don't know why I thought I would like this one. And that's a very good point. If you didn't really like The Secret Garden, or you don't like the movie, because I had never read Secret Garden, but I really like the movies, then, you know, you'll like that. But if you don't like either of those, maybe stay away. I will say the Romeo and Juliet one, much better than actual Romeo and Juliet. Romeo's still kind of annoying, but overall, still a much better character than in the real Romeo and Juliet. So I think all of those were 4 stars. My Roommate is a Vampire was 4.5 stars. Okay, so the next category is what I consider mixed media. I don't know if okay, when people read books, and in my first head, I think of like, the Good Girl's Guide to Murder, where, you know, it has like the letters and like stuff inside of the physical copy, and people call that mixed media. But to me, when I say mixed media, I just mean like I read it either as both an audiobook and like a physical copy, or a physical copy and an ebook, or like ebook and like an audiobook. Like, basically I didn't read it all in one type of media. That's what I consider it, and that's how I like classify things. So the first one that I read, which I read this earlier this year, and I actually read twice, and that does count towards my goal. I do count rereads, because I read most of the books I probably read in a year are rereads. I reread a lot of books, usually. Or I'll even, like, sometimes I'll read a book and then I'll immediately reread it, but I don't necessarily finish it, which doesn't always count towards a goal, which I have a book later on that I'll, like, mention. But this first one is Love Comes Softly by Jeanette Oak. I read that twice. I both read a ebook copy and a physical copy. Turns out, because of the years that they were, like, those copies were specifically, like, published, there were, like, edits made. So it was actually really interesting to see those, like, differences. The next one I read, I'm laughing because this book is not going to be for everyone's cup of tea, but I love romance, and I read this as a palate refresher. So that's why I'm laughing, was Morning Glory Milking Farm. Oh, I gave Love Comes Softly 4 stars, by the way. I really liked it. Love the movies. Love the book. Morning Glory Milking Farm by C.M. Nascosta. I didn't actually rate it on Goodreads, but I think I would give it 4 stars. It was actually good. I thought it would be way more trashy than it was, but it was really good. It's basically like this lady, she needs, a career. She can barely afford her rent and like living and stuff, because what she did go to school for, it wasn't really viable to get a career out of. So she just gets a like good paying job at Morning Glory Milking Farm, and they're milking centaurs. If you know about mythology, minotaurs, I'm pretty sure historically are just men. They don't have udders. Okay, you can take your own guess of what they're milking. Anyways, But it was actually really good. It wasn't just trash, which, to be honest, I was okay with, whether it was or wasn't, but it was good. The next section is like books I physically read. I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This was my first time actually reading an Ali Hazelwood because, if you know, she primarily writes like contemporary romances, and I don't love contemporary romances. I'll read some, but they're not my favorite. But this paranormal romance, I love some paranormal romance, as like half of the things I've talked about are paranormal. I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. Actually, this is a book that I read. I got it from the library. It just happened to be like in. I think it, and I didn't realize it was so new. Like, I read it basically as soon as it came out, and I didn't realize it because I just got it from the library. I was like, oh, I've like seen this. I want to read it, and got it. And I'm pretty sure I was like one of the first people to read it. Anyways, gave it 5 stars. I read it, returned it, immediately bought myself a copy, and then proceeded to reread it. I didn't like finish the reread, which is why I can't say that it was 2 times that I read it and like it counted towards my goal. But loved that book. Loved that book. The next one I read, which is a sequel, that was a physical copy, Love's Enduring Promise. It's a part of the Love Comes Softly series by Jeanette Oak. I gave it a 4.5 stars, rounded down to 4. It was a really emotional roller coaster. I do remember that. I liked this one more than Love Comes Softly. I plan on reading the rest of the series. I don't think any of them will be 5 stars. Right now, I think that one might be my favorite. But I can't say for certain that until I read them all. But that one was really good. Loved it. Those are very Western, like not prairie, but like traveling out west vibes, right? Think like Little House on the Prairie. But obviously not that exactly. The last category is ebook, which I only have 2 for that, which are Flawless and Heartless by Elsie Silver. I have fallen in love with her, okay? I gave Flawless 4 stars, Heartless 5 stars, okay? K-Dean, love you. One of my new fictional crushes. But those were great. I really want to read the rest of that series specifically, and then the other series by Elsie Silver. Those are like cowboy ranch romances. But they were really good. One that I'm currently in the middle of, one is I am 41% of the way through Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. I am loving that book. But it is also, I'm reading it as an audiobook, and I don't unless I like set aside time to read the audiobook at my house. I usually rely on me being in the car for that. But I'm loving the audiobook, and so I don't think I want to switch to a physical copy. So we'll have to see. But I am currently reading that. So yeah, I don't think, this is like probably going to be the first year that I've met my Goodreads goal, and then I don't update the goal. Because I've done that before where I reached my goal and then it was like reset a new one, and then I do it and then I don't hit the new goal, and then it makes me feel kind of bad, and it's like, you didn't hit your goal for the year. And I'm like, I did though. I updated it twice. I actually hit 2 goals, and then this 3rd goal that I made didn't update it. So I think I'm just gonna leave it at 12. And yeah, this is also the first time that I've added in the DNFs. I know, again, people will complain about that probably, but again, my life, my Goodreads. If I put in the effort to read over 50% or close to 50%, I'm counting that I read it, because I could have been spending my time reading a book I actually liked. But anyways, I will see you guys soon. If you like the video, you can like it, or comment if you want to. Yeah. Hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys next time.